Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha, you are watching Perspective. Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in the 25th meeting of the Council of Heads of State of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO, held in Tianjin, China. The two-day summit witnessed productive discussions on SCO Development Strategy, reform of global governance, counter-terrorism, peace and security, economic and financial cooperation and sustainable development. In his address at the summit, Prime Minister Modi highlighted India's approach to strengthening cooperation under the SCO framework. In this regard, he sought greater action under three key pillars, that is, security, connectivity and opportunity. The Prime Minister also emphasized that peace, security and stability remain key to progress and prosperity, calling upon the member nations to take firm and decisive action to fight terrorism in all its manifestations. While thanking member states for their strong solidarity in the wake of the Pahalgam terror attack, the Prime Minister reiterated that there should be no double standards in dealing with terrorism. Further, the Prime Minister also highlighted the role of connectivity in fostering development and in building trust among nations. Also, to foster greater people-to-people ties and cultural understanding, the Prime Minister proposed a Civilizational Dialogue Forum within the SCO grouping. So we'll discuss the key takeaways from the Tianjin summit with an illustrious panel joining us on the program. I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Arvind Gupta, Director, Vivekananda International Foundation and former Deputy NSA. Dr. Gupta, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program. I'm also pleased to welcome Mr. Ravi Prasad Narayanan, Associate Professor, Center for East Asian Studies. Professor, glad to have you with us on the program as well. And Mr. Alok Bansal, Director, India Foundation. Mr. Bansal, absolute pleasure to have you with us on this edition of Perspective. Dr. Gupta, allow me to have the first word from you. Let's begin with your thoughts on what is the biggest strategic takeaway for India in terms of the Prime Minister's participation at the 25th SCO summit in China?
I think it was very good on the part of Prime Minister to go and participate in the SCO. We are seeing that SCO is now developing as a institution with which has views on almost all major global issues. So to be heard at such a forum and also to listen to other leaders and also to have bilateral meetings with many of them, I think this is going to be very important for India also, as we understand from first-hand from the top leaders as to how they see the world changing, how the new world order that is emerging, what are its key shape, and what is its shape and key features, and also make some positive suggestions. This is the point today is that the world is at an inflection point, and all countries are recalibrating their approaches, strategies, foreign policy on various issues. And SCO, like some other forums, are now positioning themselves as important multilateral but multipolar institutions. In fact, the SCO summit itself, the Tianjin Declaration, talks about a new world order based on UN principles of UN Charter and the principles of SCO Charter.
Right.
So I think SCO is growing in its importance. Now it has views on so many issues, and all of them are important for us, and we are in a position to make positive contribution. So from that point of view, I think India's participation was very important, and it should yield positive results.
Certainly. We'll also discuss in greater detail about some of the significant aspects that the Prime Minister touched upon in his address. But before that, Mr. Bansal, in terms of the declaration, the Tianjin Declaration at the SCO summit, how do you see it reflecting India's priorities given the current complexities in the world geopolitics?
They talked about Pahalgam terror attack. It condemned it in unambiguous terms. It talked about cross-border terrorism. It actually criticized terrorism. To my mind, I think it was a very, very effective statement which projected India's viewpoint as far as global community was concerned. And I think in terms of various interactions which Prime Minister Modi had during the SCO summit, I think it has had a transformative effect as far as India's future foreign policy is concerned. And not only India and the SCO countries, but the globe was looking at this particular summit with bated breath, because this was a significant summit. And I think at a time when global geopolitics is undergoing transformation under the onslaught of unilateral tariffs that have been imposed by the United States of America, there is huge turbulence. And I think this summit saw coming together of three major economies, namely China, India, and Russia, apart from other Central Asian countries, which actually projected that India would like to cherish its strategic autonomy. And what is important is that while the SCO summit and its pronouncements projected India's concerns adequately, but the fact that Prime Minister visited China after visiting Japan very clearly highlighted that India clearly wants to show to the world that we cherish our strategic autonomy. We are neither clinging to one bloc or to other. Similarly, even in his address, Prime Minister very clearly highlighted that connectivity, he highlighted the significance of connectivity, but he says connectivity loses its importance when it actually infringes on sovereignty.
Absolutely.
And what is even more important is that while he attended the SCO summit, but he did not stay put to attend the Victory Day parade. So he has given adequate messages. We want to improve our relations with China. With Russia, we already have very good established relations. But at the same time, this summit is not aimed against any country, notwithstanding the fact that the huge interest that the global community has in this summit is primarily emanating because of the tariff war that's been unleashed.
Sure, we will discuss how much space will India get at the SCO platform, especially on the connectivity aspect, given China's dominance through the BRI. We'll explore that in the next round. But coming to you now, Professor Narayanan, for your perspective, terrorism is something that we've heard the Prime Minister speak about at various platforms and reiterating that it must be fought in all its manifestation. But at a platform like SCO, where we've had differences with both China and Pakistan on how some of the things on terrorism should be spoken about, how they should find place in the declaration. The fact that Prime Minister did not mince words and he, asked member countries to hold the states who are sponsoring cross-border terrorism accountable. How significant is that coming from an SCO platform?
Thank you, Rita. Yes. When it comes to terrorism, isn't it quite worrying that the rest of the world, through existing multilateral institutions, has not defined terrorism so that it can be controlled and eliminated? When it comes to SCO, credit has been given to our Prime Minister for having gone to China after 7 years and part of this SCO meeting. Here, beyond terrorism, I think there are two aspects which we have to see, practically and realistically, which are the same actually. First is the world is wanting to do more beyond the geopolitics to geoeconomics. Second is that the SCO, interestingly, has 10 members, 3 observers, and many dialogue partners, which make it more than 3 billion people, which could be a market of the future. Actually, currently it is. They just have to put themselves together as a basket of production and consumption. SCO here has to focus on economic security, where, interestingly, we have to borrow a Chinese concept of Wei Qi. Wei Qi in Chinese means threat is opportunity. The threat here comes from a unilateral perspective, from far away geographically. The SCO needs to incorporate the BRICS so that the two together, they come on a plane on the same template, so that one doesn't have to be held hostage by the weird statements made by the President of the United States. So it is time for this meeting to be the starting point where, as a global institution, the SCO and also allied to it, the BRICS, they are the beginnings of an alternative to the United Nations. I'm sorry to say this, but the UN has perhaps outlived its utility. I'll stop here. I'm ready for questions.
Sure, we'll discuss this further, all of the points that you've made. I'll take on first from what Mr. Bansal spoke about connectivity, because in addition to terrorism, connectivity was another major thrust of Prime Minister's address at the SCO summit. Dr. Gupta, this has been on my mind, given the relations, the hot and cold relationship that we have with China, and given China's dominance also in the Belt and Road Initiative. How much space do you see for India's connectivity vision? Because while the Prime Minister spoke about India's support for connectivity projects, he did assert India's stand also on no compromise when it comes to matters of sovereignty.
So, you see, when geography is such that India cannot benefit too much from the existing connectivity projects, except for Chabahar, which was mentioned, and also the INSTC. Now, INSTC has been there for now more than 2 decades. It is moving slowly, but it passes through Iran, and Iran, you know, is also a geopolitical issue. Chabahar is neither here nor there. Some little commerce takes place from there. Strategically, of course, it is very important, but we have been trying to connect Chabahar with the INSTC, but that will require a lot of investment, etc. But most of the connectivity projects that are happening are under the BRI umbrella. That is a reality, and you have to accept that. And there was a mention of BRI in the Tianjin statement, in which India was not, since India doesn't support BRI, its name was not there. So India has some reservations about connectivity, BRI, particularly the way BRI and the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor passes through POK, etc. So this is going to remain. So on connectivity, well, we are for connectivity, but there are some objective issues, objective constraints. And we'll have to see how our relations with Iran should improve. We need to invest much more in Chabahar and its hinterland. But at this point of time, the geopolitics is such that you cannot expect too much of a progress on that area. So from our point of view, connectivity with the CIS, with Central Asia is desirable, but it remains a problem. On the other hand, Pakistan, Shahbaz Sharif also mentioned the connectivity projects, and now there are the China, Uzbekistan, and which is Kyrgyzstan railways, and the Taliban is also building some. So a lot of projects are taking shape there, in which India is not there. So I think our involvement with the connectivity projects at this point of time, no matter how much we desire, is going to remain limited.
Certainly. Mr. Bansal, what are your thoughts on some of these constraints that Dr. Gupta spoke about? But at the same time, given our need and given our engagements with the other countries in our neighborhood, how do we make sure that we find solutions to get rid of these roadblocks?
See, I have no doubts that we have to think out of the block. And I don't think so Chabahar and North-South corridor is going anywhere till Iran's problems with the West gets resolved. But I have options. To my mind, we need to start looking at accessing Eurasian heartland through the Karakoram Pass. Maybe offer China a road from Karakoram Pass to Kandla. And at the same time, access Kyrgyzstan from Karakoram Pass, which takes you to not only Central Asia, but also to Eurasian heartland. Secondly, we are already talking of border trade with China. Large number of border trade points exist. But at the moment, the border trade is actually mundane. It actually deals with only local products. Ideally, we should have free flow of goods. Historically, western parts of China were supplied from India. In fact, Tibet was supplied from Calcutta port as late as 50s. And so that needs to be started. Similarly, we also have Stillwell Road, which actually connects Kunming with northeastern India, and it passes via Myanmar. Because what we need to understand is that our connectivity projects with China have been hampered because of border dispute. Now that border dispute is unlikely to get resolved in short term. So we'll have to look for those points where we have clarity, where both the sides agree that this is the border. And one of them is Stillwell Road, since it goes through a third country. It goes via Myanmar, northern Myanmar. It goes through, that's a very clear road. Similarly, Karakoram Pass is another established factor. In fact, this Karakoram Pass route will also benefit not only Ladakh, but will also stabilize the positions in Ladakh area, because then both countries will have their interest, economic interest in ensuring that this lifeline continues. Similarly, you have numerous other roadways like Nathula, Shipkila, all these Lipu Lake, etc. If these are also opened up, I'm sure goods from India to Tibet will start flowing, and that will help to balance the trade imbalance that we have with China. Certainly. Because to my mind, Pakistan is unlikely to give you a thorough access to Afghanistan or Central Asia, at least in foreseeable future. Iran, desirable. Chabahar port, desirable. North-South corridor, desirable. But I don't visualize any breakthrough in near future. So ideally, I think we need to offer China probably an access to Arabian Sea, while seeking through China and access to Central Asia. That would be a quid pro quo, and I think that would probably wean away China away from CPEC also, and then probably we would not be the sole exception not supporting the BRI in SCO. Maybe if we find that sort of a proposition, it will be help. It requires huge change of attitude, change of mindset, but to my mind, this is feasible and desirable.
Certainly, given the constraints, these are options that that I'm sure would already have been explored by the diplomats at the forefront, and let's hope things work out in India's interest. Professor Narayanan, another interesting aspect that the Prime Minister spoke about, and this I found quite unique, was the proposal of a Civilizational Dialogue Forum to foster people-to-people ties, deepen the cultural understanding. From a soft power initiative point of view, how important or how critical do you think this step is, or this proposal is going to be, in strengthening India's place in Eurasia and in a way sort of doing away with all the narratives which are working against India? How do you look at that proposal?
Yes, first, what the Prime Minister said about connectivity. Connectivity has to be there between us, East Asia and Central Asia. Now, this is where the Act East policy can succeed. Second is the civilizational aspect, which is very clear when it comes to the Iranian world and India. For instance, many words which we speak in our local language comes from Persian. Apart from this, the influences from Iran have been, as history tells us, even in architecture. And also, despite all the geopolitics happening, Iran has a soft corner for India. This is a time when we reach out to Iran, beginning with supply of oil. It will be a radical change, but if you and I were into business, will it be cheaper for Iranian oil to come to India or importing it from the United States? You and I know the answer. So the thing is, we have to get together, the whole group, SCO and BRICS together, to call the bluff of this extreme animosity which has been created by the current president sitting in Washington. What we have to peruse and be worried about is the current president in Washington the exception, or is it going to continue with whoever comes next? We have to prepare for a plan B, and that plan B means geographically we get in touch with the near abroad, starting with Iran and Central Asia. When it comes to soft power, we don't have to work hard like China when it comes to promoting soft power, because deeply embedded are aspects coming from Indian civilization. So let us try to improve our, you could say, nearby countries' policy, minus, of course, Pakistan, which has to be seen as a country, not a failing state, but a flailing state. So we have to be prepared for when
what
that
you're saying
particular
reminds me of that saying that in politics there is no permanent enemy or friend. Perhaps even in diplomacy this deems fit, because what we are seeing, the kind of shift that we are seeing, is truly guided by national interest, and that's where you do not have permanent friends or enemies. Whoever is willing to support that interest of the people becomes a friend. But taking on the same question on the Civilizational Dialogue Forum, I'll take that to you, Dr. Gupta. That's a unique proposal at the SCO, because about SCO we know it's a grouping where we usually see discussions around hard issues, the economic issues, the strategic issues. But to push an initiative which is more on fostering people-to-people ties, building more of cultural cooperation among the grouping, how much weight do such initiatives carry? If you could help us and our viewers understand what change is the Prime Minister expecting through this initiative?
This civilization and culture now are becoming mainstream in international relations. If you look at Russia, it is projecting itself as a civilizational state. If you look at China, it is projecting itself as a civilizational state. Modi ji also has been emphasizing the civilizational consciousness of India. Similarly, you look at Iran and Turkey. Now, these are all important players in Eurasia. So, civilizational consciousness is very important, and it has, in some sense, an impact on the existing nation-state structures, which are very rigid. So, we have to see carefully as to what this civilizational state narrative which several countries are building, what it really means in terms of geopolitics. Having said that, I think it's a very good idea that we should have a civilizational dialogue, because if you look at the last 5,000 years, it is the Indian civilization which is the most continuous civilization. Of course, Chinese civilization is also continuous, but the Chinese civilization borrowed a lot from the Indian civilization. But China has run away with this, narrative of Silk Road, and it has been forgotten that there was a huge amount of civilizational export of ideas and so many other things from India to China, North Korea, Korea, Japan, Central Asia, etc. So if we play this properly, this civilizational dialogue, and actually invest in it, then perhaps people would be reminded of what tremendous contribution that India made to the growth of civilizations and cultures in Central Asia and China, and what they used to call the Western region. If you look at the narratives or the writings of Yun Xiang and Fayan and other people, and hundreds and hundreds of manuscripts were taken away from Nalanda and other places to China to improve the practice of Buddhism there. So many people even were abducted even those times, that who were the pundits of Buddhism and Hinduism, etc. Now all this has been forgotten. The Uttar Path, for instance, is far older than the Silk Route which China is talking about. But China, because of its massive outreach and also now its global civilizational initiative and global security initiative and BRI and so many other initiatives, is running away with that narrative. So I think behind Modi ji's suggestion probably there is a strategy, and we should certainly work on it.
Mr. Bansal, I'll come to you with a closing comment on that, because that's made the dialogue very, very interesting. And given the strength that a civilizational forum will provide, I'm intrigued to ask you, because I wanted to link it to the G20. It sounds similar. At G20, when India sought to represent the global South, India in a way became the bridge between the global South and the global North. Through this civilizational dialogue at a forum like SCO, can India in the times to come position itself as a bridge of cultures between the larger economies and the smaller ones, and India sort of playing that bridge of cultures within the SCO?
See, not
It must.
only bridge of
Oh, sorry.
cultures, but we would also emerge as a fountainhead of ideas and strength. Actually, if you go to hinterland of China, I'm telling you, go beyond Shanghai, etc. You go to Western China, you go to places like Kunming, etc. You find an overwhelming influence of Indian culture. In fact, Taoism is just like Hinduism to a very great extent. And that is where you realize how much India's soft power has a role to play in China. Yoga is immensely popular. In fact, if given a free hand, even Indian films are extremely popular in China. Unfortunately, we have not tried to harness this soft power of India as far as China is concerned. And I think knowledgeable people in China do realize the huge influence that India has had on Chinese history, Chinese culture. And I think once more and more people start visiting India from China, we have a huge potential to harness the Buddhist religious circuit as well, which we have not been unfortunately able to harness, because I think there have been certain restrictions on free movement of people between India and China. Most of the tourists coming from China are usually the business tourists rather than the tourists coming for visiting places and religious places. You go to Bodh Gaya, Sarnath, etc. You find hardly any Chinese coming there. But whenever I have taken a Chinese delegation to these places, I have found that despite being the card-holding members of the party, they have always shown reverence to those places. Right. So there is a huge scope, and I think all Chinese realize and they perceive India as a source of wisdom. I think that we can really play out once our differences at least are frozen, if not resolved completely.
And at least we are able to explore and harness the potential that you mentioned. Time allows me to take up only that much on the program today, gentlemen. Thank you once again for joining us with your thoughts, your views and perspectives on this very, very interesting subject, and also bringing in newer perspectives on the other side of it, what is perhaps not covered as much in the media. Thank you to you viewers as well for your valuable time. That's it from us on the program today.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.